Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Harmonious Engineering Let's Play series. So it looks like we're on episode 5 today, and I've got a couple of things planned. So looking through the quest book, there are a couple of things that we can get to immediately, and one of them is probably the next target of ours. At the end of the last episode, I mentioned that I would probably make some sort of regulation device to help us turn off those valves rather than just disconnecting them for the vortex tubes for our rubber production. So I've got that ready. I don't know what else I might need in the redstone department, but I will grab what I have, and hopefully that will be enough to make something work. It doesn't have to be really the most beautiful. As you guys have seen, it's a pretty cosmetically barren area over there. But I also want to make ourselves an Amazon tablet. So the Amazon tablet is like a drone delivery system that allows you to order stuff from the Amazon store and have it delivered to either a chest or a tank, which is why I have one of each. And as such, it will take payment from your chest or tank, because you can, in fact, sell stuff from a chest or tank, and then you can receive payment in form of emeralds or in form of items if you're buying stuff with emeralds. It can also communicate with nearby villagers and consolidate villager trades. So if you see like your Amazon tablet say there's new deals for the day, that's because a nearby villager restocked for the day or for the time period, because I believe they restock 2 or 3 times a day. I think it's twice. So that means that they restocked, or that they restocked, or that they upgraded rather. So yeah. So we're going to work on the Amazon tablet. We have most of these things already. Remember last episode we worked on the plastic. I got a little bit more, so we're up to 37 now, which is quite a bit. I'm actually really happy with that. I'm going to preemptively grab the capacitors and transistors because we're going to need them going forward at one point in mind, at least that I'm thinking of. We're going to grab one of these air canisters, and then we're going to need to make one of these GPS tools. So the GPS tool is a glass pane, which it seems as though I don't have any, so we'll have to make one. And then we're going to need, we're going to need redstone torch and a diamond. So that is the last component that looks like we are missing out on. And now we can get ourselves an Amazon tablet. Now, you'll notice that there's a mechanic here that I don't think I've really discussed, and that is this bar here. You see it says pressure 0 bar, and that there's like a durability bar on that. It's kind of hard to see, but right there at the very end, there's like a little durability bar, just like all tools. And so what happens is these things run off of air pressure using that air canister that we put in the recipe. So there's that air canister, and so that's where the capacity for this device is coming from, and that's where you're going to find we're going to need to refill this. So we're going to set up a small trading booth over somewhere in this area. I mean, we've got all the space that I built out, so for now I might make this a little symmetrical by putting it here and here. And so what we'll do is shift right click both of these. You can see this one is for fluids and this one is for items. If I hold shift, you can see items at, and then the dimension, and then the position, and then fluids at, dimension, position. So now we just need to charge this guy by putting it here, and you'll see that it will slowly but surely go up. And as it gains that charge and equalizes with the rest of the system's pressure that we have here, we will eventually get enough bar that we can start to use it. And I think really it doesn't take that much to do in the first place. So with the Amazon tablet out of the way, we need to use our Amazon tablet to buy a PCB Blueprint. And these are all of the Amazon trades that come by default. And there are others, like I said, that come from villagers. So let's go ahead and open this up and let's look for that blueprint. So the blueprint recipe here, what you have to do is provide your chest with what you're going to give it first. If you don't, then it won't let you add it to the basket. So you can see without that in the chest, these are all red because I have nothing that I can give in return. You can also see recipes or trades rather that are coming from villagers, so that helps as well if you need a trade from a villager. Like I could trade in some sticks for some emeralds, which probably wouldn't be the worst idea, but we'll get to villager stuff soon anyway, so that's fine. So now when I put those emeralds in, these are available. So we could buy some crude oil, which would drop off in our food tank. So if we were running out of crude oil, we could do that. It looks like we can get steel mechanical components. It's actually not a bad trade because those kind of stink to make. But this is what we're looking for, is a PCB blueprint. So I'm going to right click to add one. You right click to add and left click to subtract. So we're going to right click to add and we're going to place order. And now if you wait, an Amazon drone will come and take its payment and send it back off to Amazon. And then a different Amadron drone from somewhere, oh, it looks like the same place, is going to drop off our PCB blueprint. So that is the PCB blueprint that we needed. Now, the reason we need this is because in order to create a UV light box, we require this blueprint, and we need a UV light box to get into circuitry. That's sort of the pathway that this entire branch of the quest line will take you on, is the path to make finished PCBs, because finished PCBs are used in a handful of things, not only within Pneumatic craft, but they're also how you're going to get your first few components, such as the electron tube, and in addition to the electron tube, you're also going to need them for the, I believe it is the, maybe it isn't. I thought it was used in one other recipe in mind, but at the very least, you will need them for the electron tubes, and electron tubes are required to craft mechanical crafters. So this is like a very important component to get to at some point. It doesn't necessarily have to be the forefront of your focus, but it definitely has to be somewhere in line with your current research as you're progressing through. Now, as mentioned, I wanted to hook up a means to get a lever power situation put together for this. So what I'm going to do is probably, I don't really know that it matters, so I'll put that there, I suppose. That's perfectly fine with me. And we will put the valve down, the regulator tube rather, and that module stated that it was in line, and it is. So you can see that it actually like replaces the end piece of the tube. So you can see it's currently receiving no redstone, so the threshold for it is 4.9 bar. So that means that if it receives redstone, now the threshold is 0.3 bar, and that is kind of annoying because we want this to be a one-to-one, like if it's on, then I want it to be on. So let's go ahead and put a piece of, I guess gravel can sit on redstone technically. And so now you can see the threshold is 0 bar. It's going to completely shut off any and all pressure going through here. It should at least. I may have this facing the wrong way though. Let me correct that. Thought I lost one. There we go. Yeah, this may simply be facing the wrong way. I frankly cannot remember which way it is supposed to face. So if we did this, yep, so it looks like the, let me make sure that I've got that working correctly, because as you guys know, I've had some issues. So we are currently at -64 and 0.1 bar. If I turn this off, I may have inverted that on accident, actually. No, I'm not really sure what's going on. Oh, because I was looking at the wrong one. So that's 1.8, like that's rising. If I turn that on, should be dropping. Perfect. Okay, so that is working, and I just forgot to hook this guy up. Okay, great. So that is exactly what I wanted to see. So we should see these guys drop down, and anytime we need them on, we'll just turn them on with a lever. Beautiful. So something else that I would like to buy from Amadron, which is why I'm going to provide it, the emeralds there, is I would love to buy lubricant. And lubricant is creatable. We could make this, but frankly, I am kind of just too lazy. So we're going to buy 8 buckets of lubricant. And so once again, we're going to see our drone come down, steal our 40 emeralds. I know we just went through a bunch, but that's okay. And a separate drone is going to come down and fill our tank with 4 buckets of, or 8 buckets of lubricant. So lubricant is important because lubricant can be used for a handful of things. Levitation lubricant can be made most efficiently with lubricant going into the main recipe, although it can be made other ways. And then We also have the fact that we need it for, I'm trying to remember, it is the, where is it? Right, it is the bucket. Here we go. So the speed upgrades, if I made it with glycerol, it would be twice as efficient, but as stands, we can make speed upgrades just as is. So I'm going to grab this. We'll put it back because you see it's still expecting it to be there in that spot, so we will put this back. But I'm going to grab this and let's make some speed upgrades for our fuel generation, because speed upgrades in general can be grabbed and removed, and they're fully modular. So we can take them, replace them, do whatever. It doesn't really matter where they end up. We can put them wherever we want them to be, at whichever point in time we want to put them there. But I just figured this would be a really great way to optimize how we are using our fuel. And then on top of that, we can also sort of get a increase in the overall capacity for our system. So with 8 of these, we're going to need quite a bit of sugar, which is fine. We've been farming. And so that's some speed upgrades. Speed upgrades will be very helpful just overall because, yeah, a lot of things in pneumatic craft are slow. And that's just sort of how it is until you get speed upgrades on the way. And speed upgrades are not too terrible to make, as you see. And I wanted to point out, too, you remember I said we could have just made this. This is how we would have made it. It's not that bad. So we are currently producing diesel here. We could have put that in the thermopneumatic processing plant. And that would also make us some. So we should probably look into doing that as well, because we kind of just more or less took the lazy route, but that got us a whole bunch of them at once, which will let us put them in here. And so what you're going to see happen is we will now recover, that burns out almost immediately because it's way faster, but we will now almost immediately recover from the majority of our, I did not want crude oil. I don't know why I did that. We will almost immediately recover from the majority of our recipes. So we will take the diesel, and if we look at the fluid recipes here, the thermopneumatic processing plant will turn 1 bucket to 1 bucket. So we can do this a couple of times. I know we're kind of slowly but surely getting through. And, you gotta make sure you don't make kerosene. I apparently did forget about that. So we are sort of out of luck. When that happens, it's kind of just a mess. So I'm gonna let this process over because honestly, there's not much else we can do. You can see these guys have been producing a ton of heat. We're in the thousands of degrees Celsius. And then I'm just gonna dump the kerosene because we don't need it. That's for the input tank. Okay, well, and that's somehow only made 800 out of a bucket. That's very confusing. So I may just have to break and replace this. Nope, you kept your fluids anyway. Okay, so now what are my other options? Guess we'll have to make a fluid trash can. Give me just a second and I will get that. While I'm here making a fluid trash can, I realize I should probably go ahead and show you guys the creation of the UV light box. So we're going to need 3 of the redstone lamps here, and then we're going to need 1 pressure tube and 5 compressed iron, I believe that was. 4, okay. And that gets us the UV light box. We will get into the exact purpose of this shortly. While we're here, I wonder if we can go ahead and get an etching tank. I think I'm going to be shy on obsidian because this takes only obsidian and not the crying obsidian. So we will need to probably go get some and probably go do some mining while I leave some things processing. But yeah, if ever this happens to you where you end up in a situation like this where I have less than 1 bucket, it's not exactly a bucket's worth that I can just scoop out using a bucket. What you can do is what I'm about to do. So you can grab yourself, I don't think this, I'm just going to try this first. Yeah, okay, that would have been too nice. You can right click this with a tank, and so that will get you out the output fluid. And when you place that down, you see we've got our tank, and there is there are a handful of ways that we can get stuff out of here. And what we can do is make either a fluid pipe. There are a few options for that. I might look into making one from the pipes mod, but we are a little bit stuck at this point. But there's the ability to do that. We can also focus on doing, I was looking to see if there's like some sort of fluid pipe. Because, yeah, this is one of those things that every now and then I come up with a solution, but it always changes. It always seems to change at least. So there was the fluid hopper. I'm pretty sure that this won't work, but we can always give that a try. Worst case scenario, we'll delve into create some because we have everything we need to do that. Except I would personally probably like to get a little bit more andesite alloy if I could. I just haven't gone back for more andesite, which is completely my fault, by the way. But once we get some more andesite, I think we would be like beyond good to go. So let me see what we can do as far as a pipe goes. I thought that had an auto output, but I'm thinking of the ender tanks or the dimensional tanks. That's what I was thinking of. One of them has like this little slot that says idle or active as far as like what do I do when I'm just sitting here? Do I actively push stuff or do I just sit here? So let's try. Just need that and 3 glass. Let's try the little logistics fluid hopper. I don't believe that this works. I think that this is really just for getting fluids out of fluid tugs or fluid, what are they called? There's a thing, fluid tank train cars. That's what I was thinking of. But maybe there is something else. Apparently I missed this. This is the transfer gadget. Let's do this. It also transfers either fluids or items, and this is apparently Pneumatic Craft's own implementation for fluid transfer, which makes sense. I was wondering how Pneumatic Craft expected me to transfer fluids around if I were to play only with Pneumatic Craft and not in a mod pack composed of other item, fluid, and energy relocation mods. So this, I believe, is the solution. So reading through it, you see it doesn't actually take up this block space. It just attaches. And we can right-click it to change it from transferring out or transferring in. And we can do this, and I believe you will, yep, 100 millibuckets at a time, empty. And there might be a way to augment it, but I'm going to be patient here. I don't really mind. But yeah, so apparently that is just the way to go with this. I was not aware of such a solution. And you can see it. That's actually really cool the way it mounts on there like an entity. That's super neat. Well, good to know. There you go. Now you know, because I didn't. Last time I did this on the test world, we ended up, or on the test server, rather, I ended up simply progressing through create enough that I could pump it out. Now, this is something that I was mentioning could happen, is your campfires will go out. You can just use a torch to reignite them. That's a feature of VTweaks. There are tags. I'll go into F3 mode real quick. There are tags. You see VTweaks : ignition item. So if something contains its own flame, like a torch, then that can be considered an ignition item. And any block that has lit, you see this attribute over here, lit, on it can be enabled back on by right-clicking with anything that is an ignition item. So, for example, just as a vague one that I've shown before, you can actually do this with furnaces. Furnaces will not cook in that state necessarily. Like if there's no fuel in a furnace, but I right-click it with a torch to change it to be turned on, it's not just going to start cooking. You still need to give it fuel, but it will look like it's on. So that is just sort of a nice little thing to have in case you ever run into this issue. And so, like I said, we could theoretically do some sort of a deploying setup where we just constantly spam right-click a torch onto these campfires to keep them from going out. But I don't mind for now doing a tiny bit of routine maintenance, considering the little cost and the high amount of temperature we're producing out of this. So, okay, I mentioned the UV light box. We do have one now. What I might do is, I don't plan on charging anything anytime soon, so we can always put the UV light box here because it is going to need pressure. It's going to need about 5 bar. And we apparently had enough pressure stored up to just sort of handle that. And we'll get into exactly what this is used for right now. So we are going to need empty PCBs. You can make these 2 ways. So either one, if you etch a PCB where the etching success chance is not 100%, there is some % chance that it will fail and you will get a failed PCB. So you can smelt that back into an empty PCB. Or if you haven't had any failures or you don't need that, like in my situation, we're just starting from scratch, you can just make one using this recipe here with the pressure chamber. So that's going to be 1, 3, and 2. So let's go grab that and make the rain and the night go away. This is what I was talking about, by the way. If I just right-click any of these, we can just force them to be turned on all the time. This will whenever a furnace is done cooking and it runs out of fuel, like this fuel gauge goes back to 0, it will reset because it updates itself like that. But just sort of a pro tip on how that works. If you just have decorational furnaces that will never be used, you can just use this as a building tweak, which is one of my favorite components of this, actually. The other thing that it's really great for is if you have lanterns, there is a supplementaries feature that allows you to turn some lanterns, I believe the ones on the walls, off. Maybe it's not these specifically. There are copper lanterns that you can turn off while you can relight them using the tweak itself as well, which is nice. Anyways, enough blabbering. I think we are ready to make a PCB. So let's get that done. We're making a lot of really good progress, at least in my opinion, on Pneumatic Craft. I really also like this little area we built. Like I said, we need a bridge, and we will be expanding out this area, but I like that it's just kind of, it's open, not really refined, or not really defined in any small space in particular. So yeah, we're going to put those in, and you're going to see, we haven't used this guy in a little bit, but you're going to see all of our ingredients go in. We could put speed upgrades on this omnidirectional hopper, but there are also just faster ways to move items in this pack. So like pipes, for example, or a rapid hopper might even work. So we could always do that as well, and that would help. Because every time that little valve opens, the pressure drops, as you see. And so does the pressure over here. But that gets us empty PCBs. So we can put these in here, and you can see that these will just, the whole UI turns a beautiful little bright color because we're turning the whole UV light box on. You can see if we crouch, you can actually see the UV lights come on. And it's basically just preparing this PCB for etching in the future. So what we'll do is leave this here until it gets to 100%. And the amount of time that it takes to get to 100% is a logarithmic slope, or a exponential slope rather. So the lower the percentage, the distance between 1 and 2% is much quicker than the distance between 99 and 100%. So that last leg between 90 and 100% will take the longest. So people may be impatient on this component and skip it and then try to etch it and have failures. I, for one, really hate the failures happening. So I'm good. Just wait. I don't have anywhere to be. And you know, I'm the one who records these episodes and slims them down for you guys, so I don't think y'all have anywhere to be either. So let's try to do, I was starting to do this earlier, let's try to make a little more lubricant on our own. This time we won't botch it, I hope. So we have redstone, we have diesel, we have lubricant. Perfect. So now we can make more of this, more of the upgrades if we wanted to going forward. For now, I'll probably just store this here. How much more diesel do we have? We don't have enough for another go right now, but we will get there. So we can also look at some of the fluid compressors. It's liquid, isn't it? I always forget that it's liquid. So the liquid compressor, I don't really know what goes into it. As far as like what kinds of fuels go into it. So we might wait to get into the better compressors. I'm okay with using a little bit of coal because right now you see it's really holding its own quite nicely. This guy's using a little bit of pressure as well to run. And it's overall just barely creaking away at our generalized pressure. We're running a lot on these two with these upgrades. So I'm perfectly content with things as they are personally. That being said, let's see if we can get some more plastic, and I'll be back. Okay, so I was about to go do some mining, and I realized that a couple of my tools could use some enchanting, and we have a bunch of experience nuggets. So I figured I would probably go re-roll my hammer enchantment, because we only were able to get efficiency 1, which is fine. But you can see we've already eaten up 400 durability on just like a couple of things around the house. So I'd love it if we could get something significantly better. At the very least, Cheapskate would be probably a decent start. Let's see what we can get at like 25-ish levels though. 24 is efficiency 3. That's perfect. I don't think I could have asked for any better luck on that one. So yeah, I think a lot of these are going to start to need repairing here soon. I don't remember what we got on some of our others. We might want to re-enchant this axe and see how we do, I guess, right? I mean, may as well. And then we can start to work on some mining and getting some more resources. Cheapskate for a axe is always good. And this sword probably could just use a replacement. So we might go make a new sword real quick and see what we do there. Because I've been doing personally an absolute ton of mining and spelunking off camera because it's only interesting for so long. So I figured I'd save you guys that. And I'm going to be as cheap as possible and go for like the lowest tier sword and upgrade it from there. Right, I actually got some really good advice. Let me process up some silver. One of the commenters on one of the episodes, a couple episodes back, mentioned that silver is a very highly enchantable resource. So if we took some silver and made a sword out of that, we could enchant it and then upgrade it. So we might do that. I think that would be a really great idea. So let's go ahead and get that stone sword going. That way we only need one silver ingot. And we'll go from stone to silver, which is a very beautiful texture, to be honest. I hate that they do so little damage, but again, that enchantability factor is kind of what makes up for it. And yeah, I know as the pack developer, a lot of these upgrading mechanics are kind of exploitable, but I frankly did it mostly because this pack would have been relatively cruel otherwise. Harmonious Engineering 2 was kind of just meant to be cruel. It got to a point where I was like, this is not enjoyable, or this is not realistic, this is not realistic, this is not... It's like, I really should have just backed off a little bit. And so this time around, I'm really focusing on the enjoyability factor of it all. And I think that's going to help a lot of people have more fun with this pack than really has ever been had on a Harmonious Engineering pack before. Let's see if I can finagle something decent at the level 18. No, not really. Not particularly. Sharpness 2, though, that on its own is some sort of improvement, because now we can at least get sharpness 3. Oh, wait, oh, to iron. Okay, that kind of makes sense. So we would at least get ourselves a sharpness 3 sword. Yeah, I'll take that. Anyways, I am going to go get some more resources really quickly so that hopefully by the end of this episode, we can get ourselves one finished PCB at the very least. Maybe 2 or 3 probably would be the maximum I would be able to make today. But getting any semblance of a finished PCB is just going to be a nice improvement. Because that'll unlock a whole lot for us going into the greater components of Create. So I'll be right back in a little bit. So I don't think I've discussed this, and by the way, we had a very successful mining trip. I did some strip mining as well down at the deep slate layers, so now we have tons of deep slate to build with, if that's what we decide to go with. But one thing that I don't think I've discussed is what the Cheapskate Enchantment does. So this will cause the enchanting or the repairing cost to be fixed. So this axe, for example, has Cheapskate, and you see it is going to cost 1 level to repair. If I do this again, it's still going to cost 1 level to repair. So this is one of my favorite components of this, is that we can just keep our tools nice and repaired pretty much at all time and not have to deal with the rising cost of the reparation. So for example, if I had maybe not lost that anvil, that's okay. You see the next one costs 2, but all of these have been costing 1 so far. Thanks to the Cheapskate Enchantment. So that's why anytime I see it, I am pretty excited to see it, because it is generally helpful for keeping a Tinker's Construct style repairing mechanic sort of close and I don't know. I'm just really a big fan of that mechanic. I like just the ability to keep your tools around without having them eventually become useless and have to make a new one. So yeah, I'm quite a fan of that mechanic. Resources don't really bother me that much. I don't mind things costing. I definitely just mind things being unnecessarily grindy, though. That kind of gets to be annoying to some degree. Anyways, we now have everything we need to make our etching tank, and with that, we should be good to wrap everything up for this, and then start getting a little bit of our etching acid crafted up. So we're going to need a bucket of molten plastic. This one's important, and then we're going to need rotten flesh, 2 spider eye, and 2 gunpowder. So rotten flesh, spider eye, gunpowder. And then we're going to need, let's see, some reinforced brick slab. Of course, it has to be reinforced brick. Why would it be consistent at all? That is perfectly fine, though. Reinforced brick slab. Across the bottom, it was that there. We will probably end up having to make a new tank, more than likely. We need reinforced brick wall. So let's go ahead and grab some of our stone and have that smelting for us really quickly. We refilled our compressed iron a little bit from exploration, and we'll need to get a new tank. So let's go ahead and get those, and we're going to need glass and a glass block. So we will get a small fluid tank, like so. We will need a supply of reinforced stone. We need 2. Put that there, and we need 2 walls. So let's grab 2 of these and then 2 of those. That gets us the etching tank. So now the etching tank does not require, it only requires heat. It does not require pressure. So we can do campfires again, which is probably what I will do. I'm glad I thought about checking that before I left. We'll do campfires on 4 sides, and we will do, I don't know, like reinforced slabs or something on the top. And then we can also put some of that stuff away while we're there. We're going to need 3 logs and 3 sticks. No, hang on, 12. What am I doing? 12 and 12. And we can make campfires once again. Just to get that heat up. So I don't have this area chunk loaded. To make a chunk loader is not that difficult. We might want to look into doing that. Come to think of it, we probably should. We're at the point now where we're doing enough that I don't want to waste time, if at all possible. So we will get started on the first tier of chunk loading. And I'm probably going to... I might break this down. And if you do F9, you can see the border of chunks. So you can see that's the border there. And if I do it again, you can see like the whole wall and everything. So if I were to put, the only thing I'd really want loaded here would be our furnace. So I'm going to put just this one chunk loader here. You can right click on it and tell it whether or not to load that one chunk. This user interface will scale out and show you the map segments for multiple different areas. But I think that will work. So yeah, let me go take a nap and we'll individually chunk load what we can because we don't need large areas loaded. And then once we get that done, we should be good to go. Part of why I want chunk loading is because we're still processing our oil over there. And since we were gone and over in the big old cave I found spelunking and strip mining a little bit, I fear that we may actually not have any more of the lubricant, I believe, that we need. I can't remember if it's lubricant. There is a resource, though, that we do need, and I need to get torches. Let me do that as well. Okay, so I've got torches. We're going to reignite this. And I said lubricant. What I meant was LPG. I was worried that we wouldn't have enough LPG to continue. It looks like we just barely do, but I am going to go and put down a chunk loader here anyway. I'm putting them in very obvious places right now because I will eventually want to go pick them all back up again and make better chunk loading. Because this is a 7x7, but the next tier does 11, and then the final tier does 15x15. So if we were to put like a 15x15 right here in the middle of this river somewhere, then it could load all of this area, and I wouldn't need to scatter them so carefully. So that's why I am sort of considering, in fact, I might, well, no, that's fine. But that's why I've been putting them kind of in obvious and obtrusive locations, just so that I at least look around and see it immediately. And I'm like, ah, that's right. That's where I put that. Let me make sure that you are properly ready to make a bucket of plastic. Plastic coming from coal. See, I knew I brought coal for a reason. So what we can do, we've got Silk Touch. We'll grab the LPG from up here. We will put that in there, and you're going to produce plastic. And we're going to take our plastic and our mob parts and put those in. And we will get a bucket of etching acid. So our empty PCB here has been fully treated using the UV light box. So that's one done. This guy, as mentioned, is going to need another setup like this. So I may, in fact, put it... I'm running out of space for stuff like this. This is slowly becoming an issue. I say slowly because it truly is a slow growth that we're experiencing here, but it is still growth nonetheless. I think we can probably fit this in right here. That should probably work. We'll do a slab on top to keep the heat from escaping out the top, because again, heat is going to be a component we want to not only use, but store inside of this guy. So the higher the heat, the less the etching time, and the less etching time, then the less of our etching fluid we're going to use. Now, fortunately, that recipe kind of was not fortunately a very easy recipe to do, but we don't really have to do it all that many more times. This etching acid is used very slowly, so we're not going to use it a whole lot. I'm going to go ahead and free up my bucket and put that there. That way I can start. I'm going to go ahead and turn the system on and let this guy get real cold again. We'll make more plastic because plastic is very good. These guys will kick on, and you can see exactly what I mean about them being like crazy fast. They're going to kick that pressure back around to that 4.5 mark. And then, why are you still running? You should stop. There we go. Okay. That makes me very nervous, but they do seem to be working as expected. And so now that our temperature is getting up there, I'm going to wait for this to go down quite a bit. You can see the etching acid usage is about 0.01 millibuckets. This is 1,000 millibuckets. 0.01 millibuckets per second. So I'm going to go and put this in, and you can see this etching process is going to go, and we haven't even used, there we go, we used up one finally. So we're going to be pretty well set there. Let me make sure that this is minus 273. Yeah, that's ideal. But that's not. If you place it in the world, it will develop on its own, which is like the way that you're kind of expected to do this early game. But honestly, we use so much plastic in this pack in a lot of different places that until we get some more efficient plastic processing using latex, this is the best we're going to get, and I don't want to ruin it. So that's that, and now we can just flip our lever off again. That got us 15 more plastic sheets. And again, like I said, they are used all sorts of places. So we're going to use them for assembly platforms from Pneumatic Craft. We're going to use them in template management from building gadgets. We're going to use them for transistors. We're going to use them for capacitors. Capacitors, like I said, we're doing just fine on from just loot tables, but transistors we're going to need way more of. So that's why I do kind of fear a lot and regularly check in on these things, is just because I am concerned that we may run into issues along the way as we try to turn our empty PCB into a finished PCB. So yeah, at this point, the only thing left on this questline is to get our finished PCB, and I would have to say that that is the same for this episode. The only thing that I have left for this episode is to get that finished PCB. So I am currently just waiting for this to go. There are no upgrades. You can see we've barely used just a tiny bit of our etching acid, so I'm not concerned about that whatsoever. You know, like I said, we're doing really good. It seems like we've topped out at 154, 155 degrees Celsius. It's slowly increasing, but this is just about done. And then once this is done, as mentioned, there is a chance that this will fail if you don't let this fully develop over there in the UV light box. But I have let this 100% develop, so we will have a guaranteed success. Of course, I was looking at the wrong slot. Go figure. So now we can make this very not helpful PCB become helpful using some transistors and capacitors. to get ourselves a finished PCB. So that is that branch of the chapter completed. Now there are still a couple of other sub-quests that we can do on this chapter that are pretty big. Automated assembly is a huge one because we can use it. If we look through here, we can use it to make this entire process with the UV light box. We basically go straight out of the pressure chamber and into a finished PCB. So this helps a lot to do that. We just need a lot of finished PCBs to get there. We've got tons of pneumatic cylinders that we found along the way. So really what we need is about 8 finished PCBs, if I remember correctly, 6 or 8. Drones, also pretty straightforward. We could make this right now if we wanted to just get the quest done. And then the pneumatic gear. So this is a pneumatic power suit, basically. I don't love this system. It's not my favorite power suit, but it is one that we'll probably do just for a couple of components that really are fun to have early game. So we will do this because this is not the end game power suit. This is. So this requires a whole bunch of stuff we don't have access to even remotely. And if you were wondering, a lot of these recipes are intended to be very difficult just because at the moment that you're going to try to get into anything, you're going to need some time. So right now, our next steps are either to make ourselves a power suit, or what I'll probably do is in the next episode, start working on some create and get into create a little bit, because we haven't done a lot of create on this channel. I've done it a lot on stream, but in the Enigmatica Let's Play series, I just kind of barely touched on create. We exploited immersive engineering to make create rotational energy, but in this pack, we are going to really dive into create. We will probably end up making all 3 of these. And if you wanted to just graze through create, you just need the hand crank and the press and the lumber mill, or the mechanical saw, to get yourself a crude hammer. And then from there, you just repeat the saw and 2 press processes to get yourself a normal hammer and get the heck out of create, if that's what you want. That's sort of the way that I designed this pack, is there are some things you're just going to have to keep around forever. We're always going to need this system to make andesite alloy. There is no other way. But this was the first thing we did, really. Remember, we set this up very early in this pack. So it's not like it's going to be that big of a pain to continue running, and we'll get to a point where a lot of other things like our air compressing will be done a lot more easily and a lot more or a lot less expensively. So we have options in this pack. We have ways to sort of go about doing things that don't have to continue to suck. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I hope you guys are really enjoying the series, because I've been having a very fun time myself. And in the meantime, in between time, I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks a ton.